And welcome back to the Paladins Pro Circuit, the PPC. My name is Finch. We're happy to have you here with us as we just wrapped up Europe. We're going to be moving into Brazil. Joining me here is Will Goremizer Newberry, and I'm happy to have him here with me as well. Gore, real quick, are you surprised at all that rrzgod were able to take down Flashpoint in that last set?
I think, like when you take into the fact that Dethroner was coming in as a sub and that they're not playing at full strength, I think it does kind of help skew things in favor. But honestly, even with the sub, Flashpoint is a menace. So the fact that they were losing this first set means that rrzgod is coming out a lot stronger than I expected and anticipated. And I'm excited to see what that means, not only for the rest of these regions, but honestly for the rest of the split for Europe.
Yeah, I think what this has shown already is that some of these teams, even if maybe they don't come in with a ton of information around them or this big aura around them, they can absolutely win some games. I think you're right to point out Dethroner had to play there for a little bit, so maybe there is a slight asterisk, but I think that they really showed us that they're a strong unit. So I'm excited now for Brazil. We're moving into Brazil, and this match should be pretty strong here as well. This is going to be Mandrakes up against Bala Mansa. And Gore, I think on paper, I'm probably leaning a bit towards Mandrakes. I mean, you do the quick math, only one team has frzgod, but still, I think that this should be a good set.
When you take the scales and you put frzgod in one hand, and then literally anybody else in Brazil on the other, it kind of starts to skew just in favor of frzgod only. And I think that's something you can kind of take into effect. Then you add Dinttick and Mittow, who has played at the pro level with frzgod, Dinttick, who has always been at the top level in Brazil. It just adds up to being a really strong team for Mandrake's University. So that's something, again, much like we were kind of looking at rrzgod during that last set as having to overcome, that's something that Bala Mansa have to overcome. RCSoldier has the most experience on this team at that high level, so it's going to be up to him and the rest of the team to kind of come together and try to overcome what's going to be an incredibly strong, probably the strongest, if not top two in Brazil right now in Mandrakes.
Yeah, I think that this could potentially be a tough matchup here for Bala Mansa, and it sounds like they're going to be heading into Serpent Beach as well, too. So, I mean, Serpent Beach, I don't know, sometimes this can be a map where those offensive pushes can kind of stall out on that last final choke point. There's some tough positioning there on that map. Gore, any kind of thoughts on just how Serpent Beach might end up playing out here?
Honestly, Serpent Beach is one of those maps that you have to look almost directly to blaster players, in my mind, because they're the ones that determine a little bit of the fight around the point fight. They can actually change the pace of the point fight, but it's realistically the push to me where they can make the big difference. Grabbing the high ground is huge. So when you look at maps like Serpent Beach, when you look at maps, honestly, even like Ice Mines where we saw at the end there, being able to strip away the balcony from other players is huge, but being able to find the high ground on a map like Serpent Beach is probably the most important.
I really think so, Goremizer. And like you said, I mean, if this map could potentially be determined by the blaster players, any good blaster players here in this lobby? I don't know,
man, I don't know. I don't know if I
just
can
kind of scratch my head. Yeah. Oh, yeah, wait, right. Yeah, frzgod, he's pretty good. Yeah, I expect this one to largely be determined in that capacity, right? Potentially, like you said, who goes on to that, who's able to maintain that high ground, who can kind of use their, I mean, we see a lot of mobility usually on this map too, right? Some Androxus has kind of come to mind. I doubt we'll see Koga, but we saw him when there were more console players playing because he was able to get up there for free too. I think that verticality and that mobility are going to be pretty critical here too.
That's going to be the interesting question. A lot of teams, I don't mind seeing, Evie will come out a lot on this map. Maeve has come out a lot on this map. Buck has thrown his name into the hat as well. And lately, specifically from what we've seen in qualification, things like Androxus have been pretty big. So there's a lot of options and avenues for these players to come through. That being said, when I think frzgod, I think Bomb King, I think Evie, and, well, I think Blaster, as we had kind of mentioned earlier. So that's where my mind goes for him. But the thing is that was just when he was playing for Space Station Gaming, right? That's because they had Ares playing alongside him to kind of do that DPS, and he wanted more hit scan. I want to know how deep frzgod's god pool has become. Like, I want to see where this champion pool is, because he might be able to pull out things that I would never even think of as his off the top of my head.
Right, I mean, just because those are the champions we normally think from doesn't mean he's limited to those at all, as we get a little bit of bonus Bellini today.
Bonus Bellini.
You will not catch me complaining. As the Ying first picked, in a world where Jenos is banned, I would have thought that this would have been a snap, maybe Furia in that spot instead, but no, it's going to be the Ying. And Gore, we saw some damage Ying getting played earlier on today around that focus lens. You think that might be what we're seeing here again, but it's hard to say.
It's hard to say just because of the fact that seems not like it seems out there. That seems like a Flashpoint patented like Flashpoint TM thing right now that's going on for them.
Right?
I'm not sure they're going to see a lot of teams come through. And honestly, I don't know if it's going to work that well without something like the Furia along beside it, right? Like you still need something else to offset the fact that you're not going to be getting as much healing off of the Ying to kind of balance it out. And so based on the fact that they only have the one Ying, I'm going to assume it's not going to be focusing Lens, that they're going to go something more standard, just try to keep the heals up.
I would hope so too at this point. It looks like they're going to be going with the Barik to handle that point tanking duties. I think it was Dolson was saying that maybe we'd seen Barik getting passed on a little bit, so he's certainly being picked up here by Mandrake. They'll let Ash handle the off tank. Ando and Viktor picked up, so no, I guess sort of blasters the way that you would normally think here, Gore Miser. I imagine that we'll be seeing frzgod on the Viktor then here instead.
The Viktor or the Andro, honestly, I think I would trust him with pretty much anything on that team, maybe save for the healer, depending on how they want to flex for it. I've never seen him heal, so I don't know how he's going to be able to do at it. But I think Androxus Buck, it's one of those things that you bring in the flanks, they take in that role. That's typically like when we saw Flex used to mean flank, but it kind of expanded into blaster.
Of did as we are ready now to move into Serpent Beach. Get a look at where everything's going to land. I believe we did end up seeing that Buck, so good call there, Gore, on him being potentially valued on this map. That's going to be in the hands of RCSoldier, and I really do think that a lot of this is going to come down to how well Lucky and RCSoldier can kind of match up against frzgod and Mittow in particular, and if there's going to be these big sort of like flanking battles and how that one's going to go, as we are ready to move in. 3 cauterizes on both sides to get us started off, so nothing too crazy.
And my eyes are realistically going to go to frzgod on the Viktor versus GroundFord on the Cassie. That's going to determine a lot of the high ground, which will then determine a lot of the pressure that falls on the point. Also, this Atlas, having this wall cover so much, this is going to nullify frzgod for a little bit, but those walls have to be on point. With such a long cooldown, it might cause some trouble for him.
Well, they've already tumbled down, and now the Inara, a bit more out in the open, does manage to just barely get back behind the wall, though. So good maneuverability, but frzgod right there with the nade. Meanwhile, the Andro taking the duel up against the Buck, using that mobility to his advantage to try and force the Buck out, but missing some of these critical shots from Mittow. That could have helped them win that one-on-one, but gets the Ying from Owtlander to come back to back him up again. And the Inara still left on an island. That's an easy win for the Barik there in the 1v1. They take down NOTSKULLEST, and Andro's still going to keep the Buck out of here, and they lose the Cassie as well.
And it's just good healings right now from Owtlander. I mean, being able to keep the Androxus alive, frzgod alive, it's causing so much pressure on them. The Bug goes way too deep. Lucky tries to get some retaliation. There's just nowhere for them to go where this Ying isn't getting the heals onto Mittow and Freeze.
You're exactly right. That is already the point captured very, very quick from Mandrake's University. frzgod had a comfortable position, and obviously Owtlander, under almost no pressure back there, able to keep those heals going, and the Buck made a non-factor. So that first fight ends up favoring Mandrake's. And Gore, I mean, how does Bala Mansa have to adjust on that fight? I mean, it looked like they really didn't have any options.
I mean, I want to see a little more focus. You have to win the 1v1 as the flank. That's the only way that I can see that going well for you. If you're this Barik, this Andro is going to be one of your biggest problems. And even with an accursed arm, it's going to cause some trouble. A nice cheeky little shot there from Mittow, too, through the little peek hole on the high ground. But it's moments like that. There's almost no pressure on frzgod because Mittow is kind of warranting so much of the sky. And I feel like Barik's getting away with murder. I mean, he's been nerfed. His sustain isn't anywhere near as good, but you wouldn't have guessed it if you were watching this game.
He should be a bit more hamstrung, but that has not been the case as Dinttick gets right on to the actual eventual place they plan to cap this payload to try and establish some positioning, and establish it he does. frzgod used one shot of that barrage, so it's going to be back up before you know. He's in this great positioning on this corner here as well. And once that ultimate is back up, should be able, if they end up grouped here, to have a pretty good value come out from it. The Buck, though, continues to get poked out. He can't get into position for a fight without being low, but does manage to take out Mittow. That might slow down Mandrake a bit without their Androxus, but they get Skullest here as well, so maybe it won't slow them down. And then comes the Buck charging in, but somehow frzgod gets back around the corner. RCSoldier cannot find the kill, finally slows him down, but Dinttick gets back in to make it 1-for-1.
And honestly, that might be enough to stall this out, but there's still 4 members here. Respawn proximity for Bala Mansa means that they can get back into the fight, but I mean, the payload is right there. And honestly, with a little bit of pressure, maybe a couple of kills, this is going to slip right in. It all depends on the tank presence from Bala Mansa and how well they can keep themselves rolling.
Mittow's back and somehow manages to stay alive with just a sliver of health. The Inara can't get back to her team, manages to make it around the corner, and there's the Atlas Wall to try and slow it all down, but the Barrage is in the back pocket waiting for frzgod all along. Skullest ends up dropping Lucky as well. That's all the front line missing, so Mandrakes get an easy cap, a 2-0 to start it off.
Yeah, frzgod being able, like, respawning and getting back into the fight switches that over. If he's not able to get back there, maybe it's still slowed down. You can put some more pressure onto Kronsz or Dinttick, and it opens up the avenue for Bala Mansa to just find a defense, stall for another 30 seconds. But both of them being undying in the front line, plus your support not dying, is solid for Mandrakes. One, just in terms of pressure at any given time, but it also enabled frzgod to die, buy, respawn, run back, and come through with some kills. And now you have Cauterized 2s online. It's just making it a lot more difficult for Bala Mansa. Their support right now not showing up as much. Mono, the healing, isn't too far behind Owtlander, but it's not keeping pace with where Outlander's presence is.
It has not, and so far they're going to need a little bit more from this Buck, I would say, as well. It has not been there so far in terms of dealing with Mittow. Maybe we'll see that fight early. The accursed arm comes down. That's it for Skullest. Takes the Inara out of the equation very early on, making a double kill for Mittow as Lucky gets shut down too. What if you just remove all the tanks from the fight immediately as frzgod takes care of RCSoldier as well, and Mandrakes already have dominant position in the mid-fight.
Yeah, as it turns out, when you kill all of their frontline presence, it makes it much easier for you to control the point, get aggressive. I mean, now Barik and Ashe don't even care. You just move Owtlander on the objective, and then you zone them out. I don't even know if anyone on Bala Mansa can get a touch right now.
They lose GroundFord as well. The Cassie taken out of this one for now, and yeah, does not look like a point's very likely at all. They do get some overtime as someone was able to make it in and at least find a touch, but that's a double kill now for Kronsz as he takes down Skullest and Lucky. Another capture and gore quickly. Mandrakes have started to run away from this. Everyone's currently streaking right now as well. No one's dying. They're just running over Bala Mansa.
I mean, my eyes immediately gravitate towards Ying on a 19 streak. If the healer is on a streak that large, it tells you enough about the state of the game right now, and it is that Mandrakes University is in control. But there's a couple of deaths here rolling out. Fincham would be honest, I don't know if this is better or worse for Bala Mansa, just because now the wipe has come through. 300 credits from the last point capture, along with the fact that they were already on such a high streak. They're going to be able to buy up plenty of items coming through. Cauterized 3s now online for Kronsz and frzgod. A Resilience picked up as well, so even if Skullest is able to throw out that ult, maybe something come like in forms of exiles from Lucky, they're not going to do as much as they would normally, and that is just going to open up Mandrakes University to try and find the last corner here that they're looking for with the payload. It might be easier to break through these choke points and find a conversion.
Well, definitely easier now as Skullest has to take a quick timeout for another 8 seconds, gets caught out, and ends up falling early on. Dinttick in great positioning too, should be able to come find something, but Mittow heals up, gets back. They're waiting on that Inflame to come back up too, but Ultimate just used as Mandrakes have decent positioning underneath, but the high ground still controlled as Mittow makes his way all the way around, looking for the Furia, finds a huge kill to shut her down early. They lose Lucky as well, and big plays continue to come out from Mittow. That's another one for him as he shuts down GroundFord as well. Gormizer, how do they deal with all this flank pressure? Another one as Skullest ends up falling as well. RCSoldier, he's got to take a trip here as well. The entirety of Mandrakes University starting to pour around this corner.
That's causing some issues from top to bottom, and right now it's almost all Andro, but again, it's just how it works in tandem. One time you have to turn left, you look at Andro, then on the right side, Viktor's going to pelt you with damage. Right now, this Inara has more problems to worry about. The wall is up, but her team's falling all around her.
Yeah, she absolutely is. Now she's the one that's starting to fall. frzgod finds himself a double kill. Too much pressure as a third kill comes through, and just like that, Gora, I might have blinked and missed it, but that's it for Serpent Beach, right? Mandrake's taking 4-0.
Wow. I'll be honest, with the way Bala Mansa drafted, did not expect a 4-0. I think they had a very solid draft for the map. It just comes down to the fact that they weren't able to control Mittow. I think that's realistically where area number 1 went wrong. That's issue number 1, which then translated to not being able to control frzgod, which meant no pressure then on the objectives and not on the front line. So Skullest 0-8, Kronsz 9-1. Again, point tank to point tank, it kind of speaks for itself as to where some of the issues lined up.
Yeah, and I wonder how important that first fight between RCSoldier and Mittow was, because Mittow got a little bit of extra help from Owtlander on the Ying in that fight, keeping him topped up, and he was able to get that win. And then from then on, it kind of felt like Mittow was winning all his ones up against RCSoldier, and all of that translates to Owtlander never being under any pressure on this Ying either. I just wonder, man, how much of it is sort of a chain, this ripple effect from losing those one-on-ones and never being able to get back there and pressure the support either.
And honestly does feel a lot like, I think Owtlander, again, they're always the unsung heroes when you look at the supports, and the front line sometimes, although Kronsz getting a 9-1 slash line makes him kind of highlight here. But Owtlander being available for that first fight, whereas Furia, with no line of sight, that Buck was up to his own healing. And that's kind of the reason you want Buck. He can sustain himself, but it turned very fast from a 1v1 between Buck and Andro to a 3v1 with a Ying and a Viktor against that Buck. And once you lose that, you're very out of position, but it immediately allows them to turn around. frzgod gets rid of GroundFord and I believe the Atlas there on Lucky. So it just became so much easier for them to smooth out that point fight in a 4v5.
Yeah, it suddenly left that Inara on a bit of an island, right, on the point as well, and then all the damage was able to turn, focus, and burn her down, too. That Inara felt a bit more like a punching bag than anything else in that game, too. So a strong map #1 on Serpent Beach for Mandrake University, but I don't think that this is over for Bala Mansa by any means here, Gormizers. Like we talked about, there's always chance for these teams to kind of turn things back around, to find some ways to still grab some wins, even when they're down. So I'm not counting Bala Mansa out by any means, as it looks like we're heading into Frog Isle here next.
Ooh, not just any Frog Isle, Finch, but the new and improved Frog Isle that's going to be coming through. Literally the same layout. If you took it and you were just running into walls, I guess if you were blind, you closed your eyes, the map still feels the same. But it looks a lot better now, and I'm actually excited to see it because it doesn't come up enough in my rotation when I play it. So any excuse to dive in there and see the new art assets is a big win for me.
You're right. Frog Isle should be looking good. Now, Gore, I expect we are still going to see at least some sniping happening. I feel like that happens a lot of the times on Frog Isle. You know, during like the group stage qualifiers, we saw some Mochi happening and doing pretty well on Frog Isle as well. Anyway, we could persuade these guys to maybe select that as we move into the picks and bans.
You know, I think if they were up 2-0 and it had been 2-4-0 slaughters, you could probably convince either of these teams to like flex out emoji just for fun, but still having some games on the line. Again, kind of going back to what we saw between Flashpoint and Rosvet, a lot of that's still question mark territory. If you lose this game because you pick emoji, it could be the start of something a little worse. But we mentioned snipers, or you had mentioned snipers, and well, both of them get taken away. Bomb King stripped away from frzgod as well. And that's just good decision making in my mind. Get rid of anything that makes him look better.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing wrong with it. Bomb King plenty and strong in his own right, then also you want to limit that from frzgod. This Barik going to get picked up here again after Kronsz had a really strong performance. You mentioned it, that maybe it kind of can fly under the radar a little bit, but I think go ahead and pick that up for him. The Ash did as well, too. I think that was Dinttick that was on that, so no reason not to pick this front line back up, and then you can kind of bounce back. I know Jenos and Ying are taken, but you can absolutely still grab Furia if you want to here, or some other support, and keep this team moving. They absolutely will. And
honestly, so my mind does shy away from Barik only because he got some significant nerfs coming into the patch that they're playing on. But again, he didn't seem to need that sustain as it was last game. If you can keep him that protected, then maybe we're not going to need to see any of that. But I expect this game, we'll see some transitions. Bomb King, Andro as a combo, and potentially going for a triple DPS lineup here for Bala Mansa. It could be really solid to control this Barik a little bit more and cause some more pressure on the point fight.
I do like this Khan lock-in, though. He can feel so strong as that off-tank, so sometimes it can be difficult to deal with. So Mandrake have to make sure they handle him, as well as an Androxus and a Bomb King bringing in damage from afar. I don't know, man. I thought Bala Mansa had a good draft last time on Serpent Beach, Gormizer, and what did that amount to? So, I mean, I like this draft too, but it depends all on your execution.
And, I mean, looking at Mandrakes once again, Barik and Ash worked well for them. Furia, I would say, depending on the fight, maybe just a little bit of a net positive compared to Ying, and I think this is a map where you can make that argument. Most of the time they come out equal, but that ult's going to be really nice. Then you add in the Maeve to counter out the Bomb King and the Andro, the Lian for some long-range damage. Bala Mansa are going to have trouble dealing with the range.
They are, and I think a lot of it is going to come down to that Lian and how much she can kind of focus some of that fire or operate in whatever space is bought for her by this Maeve, right? I mean, Maeve using that midnight, kind of clouding those comms and stripping away the information for a bit can be enough time for Lian to find a couple extra shots, put someone down as he move into the new look Frog Isle. For a moment, I was like, where are we again? No, it's Frog Isle, man. Just got a bit of a facelift as it's looking great here for this second map.
Honestly, it reinforces the frog part way more. It's not just one statue kind of going with water. It is frogs everywhere. And now I'm going to put in my petition for something new, which would be a frog-based champion. That I guess they just jump and kick really well. I don't really care about the specifics. I think it's warranted, and I think we need it. Because, I mean, just look at these statues, dude. This is fantastic.
Everything a frog can do, this champion can do, right? That'll maybe that'll be the look as we're
like
already on
but he uses his tongue.
Bomb King in some early trouble, but Lian, rather frzgod, can't find the remaining shots. It does eventually end up getting the kill, but that's Mittow that cleans that one up on the Maeve, uses the mobility to force the Androxus out, and already the center of this map controlled quite well by Mandrake's University. You can tell because Mittow's starting to push forward and look for some more damage already to pressure out this con. This is exactly what I was talking about, Goremizer. Mittow creates this space, and then how well can this Lian operate within it?
And because of the range they have, I mean, Andro can try to get back to this Lian, but hit scan's going to make it easier to trace him in the sky. You've got a nice shield in front of you between the Maeve and your front line. And unless RCSoldier is able to get rid of Mittow, which almost able to, but not quite able to, Lian's just going to be free-firing.
Gord, they're just winning their ones, aren't they? They're just winning their one-on-one fights. Just saw an excellent one with the Maeve, taking down the Bomb King, probably favored in that one. And Mandrake's University have already captured this first point. That's 5 in a row for those keeping track at home. And Mittow has decided to move up aggressively to see if he can find a couple kills, get some people off mounts. Recognizes a lot more were there than he thought and falls back with the rest of the squad.
Couple of good shots here from Freeze would enable this push a lot more, and I'm going to tell you, if you can 4-0 Serpent Beach, this is a map where a 4-0 is even more possible. I mean, it is known to be snowbally, that's why a lot of teams like it, because you can try to equalize yourself perfectly. And speaking of perfectly, it's just frzgod on this Lian. It's looking so good. A double kill picked up for him. The Enlightenment was good, so he gets the 50% recharge. I mean, this is just clean Paladins from Mandrake.
It is. This is just Mandrake's University trying to make a statement in their first set here in the PPC, Goremizer. And that statement to me is that you're going to have to come to play if you want to try and beat this Mandrake squad. The payload already being pushed in and tons of pressure from Mandrake's. The Maeve does have to fall back quite a bit, but 4 members currently streaking as the Inara tries desperately to hold on to the point. Mittow has to retreat. Andro proves to be a little bit too much on that left-hand side. I think Mandrake, they were making a strong push. They might have to slow down. I say that, but Skullest ends up dropping. Enlightenment sets up a second one there onto GroundFord as well. Lucky ends up falling. Look at the kill feed as Mittow lights them all up. That is the push successful.
So my mindset was 100%. Dinttick goes down. Okay, that should alleviate the pressure for a little bit. Right? That should buy them some time. Yes. Kronsz did not care. frzgod didn't seem to get the memo. I mean, they just kept going with it. I don't know where that came from either of them. But I think frzgod, there's a lot of little micros you can look at. Counter picks, you can look at counter play, flanks, whatever you want in this game, right? To go down a long list. But at the very top, the one thing that has to work for you, and I guess to quote Pretty Hair, is hit your shots, kid. And that's what frzgod's doing, is just hitting everything. There's nothing you can do about that. He's just playing mechanically at his best right now.
There's a lot to Paladins, man. I think it is a really it has a lot of depth here as a hero shooter, but at the end of the day, man, hitting your stuff is the best thing you can do for your squad. The BK in some trouble. RCSoldier gonna have to take a timeout as Mittow continues the warpath, forces back this con on the left-hand side. 15% already built up by Mandrakes as Lucky falls as well. Inara joining them in the spawn room as the center is now entirely controlled. And Gord, did you see the player damage charts? Kronsz doing as much damage as Mittow is on this Maeve. It's so difficult to deal with it.
I mean, yeah, when you have that amount of damage coming down, the fact that Barik lost, again, a lot of potent sustain is something I'm going to keep highlighting because you wouldn't have guessed it from the way Kronsz is playing. He's just as aggressive, going for just as much zone, getting just as much damage as he was before. And even in moments like this, he's the kind of linchpin that's holding this together for Mandrakes in terms of a tertiary damage you wouldn't have expected to see.
No, you're absolutely right, Gore, as Mittow and frzgod light up the kill feed yet again. That is the objective captured. They're now 7 in a row, 4 on Serpent Beach, 3 here on Frog Isle, and they're going to try and make that 8 in a row all told. And I think Kronsz at this point, man, might be close to MVP status for this performance. He's been an absolute nightmare. Everyone has. You don't get 7 in a row unless the whole squad's playing well.
Yeah, no, you do not get 18, 19, 16, whatever streaks they have burning on the side of Mandrakes without people doing this well. So it's just incredible to see Mandrakes firing on all cylinders right now. And I said it earlier, but I mean, Frog Isle, it's a snowballing map. With its Inflame, that might be enough to snowball it in favor of Mandrakes.
It absolutely should be. Lucky into falling GroundFord with a 6 shot there from frzgod. He finds himself a double, getting 2. And they will remove the Androxus from the equation. I don't even know how the Bomb King comes around the corner here to try and help until the front line is back up and could try and create some space, but they're not going to get a chance. Kronsz is aggressive, drops down the shield. He can keep up the pressure. Dome shield, but basically in their spawn, Goremizer as Mandrakes sweep the first 2 maps.
If I am Bala Mansa right now, I am going through this. So, you know, we've banned 4 maps, played 2 maps. There are 8 left, and I'm going through all 8 of those trying to figure out how do we slow this down, because it is getting out of hand incredibly fast there. I mean, 8 points in a row, it's hard to come back from that just in general because of how dominant it's been. But Mandrakes right now don't seem to have anything that's slowing them down. I mean, the shots that you're hitting, the kills you're getting don't affect them the way that the kills they are getting in retaliation affect you. I mean, frzgod's 10-1, Mittow's 12-0. You're just not able to get to the back line and deal with them.
No, I mean, Owtlander, another map where he very nearly doesn't die or doesn't die entirely. It's just emblematic of what the problem here is. And you know what I think is really going to make life hard for Bala Mansa here is that Mandrakes aren't doing anything crazy here. You know, they're not pulling out tricks. It's not like a triple DPS or double support or something like that. They're just playing straight up Paladins better than you. And I don't know how you overcome that mid-set.
I mean, essentially, to phrase it the way that you did, is as a hero shooter, like, there's a lot of things that come through. Again, counter picks that come down. But shooter is still in the name, and at the end of the day, if they are shooting better than you, that's all that comes out of it. And there were just Maeve daggers as well as Lian shots that were connecting in moments that realistically you think maybe they shouldn't have been connecting. No one should shoot that well, but it didn't seem to, well, affect Mandrakes at all, so they were able to get there. Now, if I'm Bala Mansa, I mean, you can look at the draft, you can look at the map, there's a lot of things to change, but I just don't know where they go.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for Bala Mansa here. I just hope that they can keep their heads on straight, you know, as a team and come back in focus, because they absolutely have some work to do on this 3rd map, Goremizer. Hey, man, I might need a moment to clear my head here as well. What do you say we take a quick break? We'll come right back with that 3rd game. Welcome back to the PPC, and if you are just joining us, don't worry, that is not a graphical mistake. You have missed Serpent Beach and Frog Isle already. They were just that quick. My name is Finch. I'm still joined by Goremizer here as my chair 2. And Gore, good luck chair 2ing what happened just now over those last 2 maps.
Mandrakes are good.
Yeah,
they're good. That's what it is. I mean, I could maybe break down to more like, hey, this is how you play Lian properly, or this is how you want to function with your Androxus. But at the end of the day, Mandrakes just played better and won because of it.
Well, some adjustments are going to need to happen from Bala Mansa here if they want to try and turn this one down turn this one around, rather. Sure, they would want to turn it down. So you're ready to start moving into that map 3. And frzgod and Mittow, man, those 2 as a combination have just been an absolute nightmare to deal with, not even to mention Kronsz and all the space he's been able to make on that Barik in both games. I mean, I don't know where you start to focus, but is there any chance maybe you try and take him off this Barik? That's been the one constant for this team. Maybe they're really used to playing around that.
Honestly, I think if you can maybe put him on something or force him onto something more uncomfortable for him, it would definitely slow things down. This is also a good map for Barik. But again, as scary as it is, maybe the front line isn't where my eyes fall to, because Brightmarsh comes into my mind alongside Jaguar Falls as one of the better maps for something like a Bomb King, which, again, he hasn't played it yet, but whenever frzgod does get that in his hands, it will definitely open up your eyes as to why it's important to keep it away from him. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it joins the Barik down there because of how potent it could be.
Yeah, Bala Mansa looks like do elect to ban the Barik. crazy shot in the dark that I'm glad ended up showing up. Rom banned away too, no surprise there at all. The Furia taken away. And last game, just to go to your point about the Barik and how that's one of those things that looks good for frzgod, Bala Mansa picked it last time, but Mandrakes are the ones that actually banned it away themselves. So Bala Mansa have to go somewhere else with this very first pick, and they elect to take Jenos and all that damage amp that he provides.
Well, so Torvald will still be available right now, and we've seen a couple of teams go towards that specifically to match the damage amp. Furia, Jenos are the ones in the main conversation for that, but it does open up to have Torvald in the equation just because shielding plus damage amps usually pretty good. Being said, again, this update does have some nerfs for him that came through, I believe. So it will be a little more difficult, I think, for him to hold up the same way that we've seen him in the past, which might be why he's kind of been foregone the last few games. But Inara Khan's just as strong, if not maybe stronger, than that kind of lineup. And while it doesn't have the exact same damage amp that you'll have out of the Jenos, the sustain for Mandrake is solid.
Well, a bit surprised that we're seeing the Domba coming through here for Mandrakes, but they're going to pair that with the Evie, and things now start to get a bit scary for Bala Mansa. The Inara has been a constant so far for Skullless. I believe he's played that in every game. That's been stripped away from him now, and they're going to put Evie or frzgod on Evie, one of his signature champions. This could potentially be really, really scary for them.
This is just control. Evie on this map, solid. I like the lineup from Bala Mansa, but again, we 2 maps in a row, that's not made a big difference. I will say though, I don't know.
Drafts. Oh no.
I mean, I don't know if I like this lineup specifically because Ashe, Ruckus, they don't necessarily have someone that in my mind is going toe to toe with Inara. So theoretically, you said Ashe in there and she can kind of keep up with it. But I'm not sure this Andrew is going to keep tabs on the Evie. I don't know if this Vivian can keep tabs on the Cassie. I mean, there's a lot for Mandrakes that just feel like it's going to do better in its role.
Yeah, I think Mandrakes have a lot of positions that could have a really good game here. And I think that despite the fact that Maeve's been surprised to see Domba here, I think he can do quite well on Bright Marsh. There's some really opportunities for him to find big ultimates on this map and set up for the squad to have some follow-up damage behind that. So there's a lot of elements on Mandrakes that I think that can do well. To me, this really is a question of how much can Lucky and Skullless, with this maybe not quite traditional frontline combination, this feels a little bit more like 2 off tanks than a point tank and an off tank. But I think that it can still work. I think a lot of it is going to be on how well those two can buy time and create space for the rest of the squad.
So Bala Mansa's draft here is going to be just kill him dead, right? I mean, it is all
right. It feels like they're leading into damage.
Lucky, GroundFord, and RCSoldier with damage amp behind them. It's just overwhelm them with damage numbers so that Owtlander can't heal, Mittow can't do much. I mean, 1800 health for an Evie is not going to be comfortable. Also, still, as much as it shouldn't be surprising, a little surprising to see Mittow on Evie instead of Freeze, but Freeze is just as solid on this Cassie, so I'm still expecting a lot from Mandrakes, but Bala Mansa are just going to overwhelm you with damage.
Well, they've lost to Mittow early on. GroundFord is the one that finds that kill, so the numbers advantage already favoring Bala Mansa. frzgod, though, trying to see if he can lock down one more member, but Kronsz is starting to fall, too. This is the first time that we've seen some vulnerability from that element of the front line for Mandrakes. frzgod does get the response back onto Skullless, but just like we thought, this Ruckus is trying to get to the back line and take frzgod out. Lucky does end up falling, and frzgod able to regroup and get back to the team. Mandrakes already have a 50% lead, but right now the point controlled by Bala Mansa.
In a very similar fashion to Serpent Beach in map 1, right now, there's just no one controlling the Androxus well enough, and he's been able to get to the backline and cause a lot of trouble, more than we've seen out of Evie. Finally, Mittow's able to get back there and cause some disruption, but with no true hit scan to lock down that Andro in forms of your DPS, you're going to have to put a lot of effort into making sure he doesn't have that prowess he's shown so far in the first part of the point.
Well, Mandrakes have taken us into overtime. That forces Lucky to come in on the Ruckus right to its death. Basically came riding in on a coffin, the Ashe trying to remove the Inara, but not going to work as frzgod gets 2. Mittow gets 1 RCSoldier as well. And maybe the very first fight gore wasn't particularly elegant for Mandrakes, but they recovered nicely and are now on the offense.
And it's just slow burn, I would argue, from them. And a lot of it, again, my eyes came down to the Androxus during the beginning. And even right now, GroundFord is getting aggressive and causing trouble for people like Mittow. In some scenarios, he's been causing some trouble for frzgod. But then they started just backing off. Whether it was from control and damage or if it was just the flanks coming through, he wasn't as engaged in the fights as he was during the first, minute and 15 seconds of that engagement. And now all of a sudden it's made it a lot easier for Mandrakes to come in, capture the point. So far, get a good start on this push, but he just got a kill on the Mittow. So maybe slowing things down, and as much as it feels like it, GroundFord might be the guy to keep Bala Mansa in this if, well, he doesn't get caught out like that.
Yeah, as soon as you say that, he ends up falling. Skullest on the Ash drops as well. And they've already gotten good damage on the Lucky on this Ruckus, but just barely. No, he can make it back over the wall. That's it for the Jenos there as well. So now, obviously, they're going to be coming in to try and reestablish that high ground as frzgod gets the triple kill. So Bala Mansa still certainly with a position, with the defender's advantage. They should be able to get up to that high ground core and try and hold them off.
And I'm trying to think where Bala Mansa are going to be able to go. There's a flank route kind of around the left side here. If Andro wants to go for it, he can land on a door, an apartment that's kind of randomly out there, or he can just go straight up and the cursed arm right down. But you got to have these shots go big, and one just flies off into the sky.
He doesn't really find any value. The Damba hightailed it out of there. He turned a little bit of a shot towards the tank, but couldn't find much there either. And Kronsz and Mittow have already gotten some kills. Mittow goes right to the back line for some damage. And sets up for the kill on RCSoldier. They've got the Jenos in trouble too. He ends up falling. Just the Andro still standing and right. And where is he supposed to go? As he slowly drifts down to what I imagine will be an inevitable death at this point, Gormizer. There it is. Savage now, 9 in a row as the entirety of Mandrakes run over Bala Mansa for yet another payload push. And at this point, Gor, that's 10 in a row, man. I mean, I almost don't even know what else to say.
Well, I can look at it this way, right? When you're Bala Mansa, your whole draft feels like a overwhelm you with damage, just kill you better than you can kill us kind of draft. The problem is you have frzgod getting a triple kill you get to see right there, which was clean. But there's also just the fact that you're not finding these engagements. GroundFord is the only one right now who's been able to get kills and go positive. Skullest, when you're on defense, same with Lucky, Ash and Ruckus don't necessarily scream out to me for their ability to face tank the way someone like an Inara or a Barik does. Right. Ash can do it, especially when her ult is available, but it's not going to be anywhere near as long lasting as Kronsz is going to be able to last on this Inara. And you're feeling that right now. If you have to take a back foot at all as Bala Mansa, you're going to start losing the fight. It's just a domino effect.
You're right. We saw in the retake, right? Lucky bought maybe 3 or 4 seconds worth of time when he tried to come back in to find that touch. He fell almost immediately, and then Ash came in. Certainly found more time, but really not enough. As Lucky's been caught out in the Ruckus, and frzgod finds the first kill of this engagement. They're going to keep all their streaks going as they got the 5v4 numbers advantage. They'll now control the center as RCSoldier does want to try and find some damage, letting loose the Sentinel, and that does force back a couple members of Mandrakes. They've got 24% though built up. The Inara still on the point and chilling for now, but there's that Vivian damage trying to force her back, but get some backup as Mittow drops in. frzgod gets himself a double. Mittow does end up paying for it, but Mandrakes still come out on top.
It's the frzgod Dinttick combo right now, though. When you want to look at it, there's a lot of stuns on the side of Mandrake. One in the Con, one in the Damba, as well as the Inara ult, which still hasn't been used. This Hexafire, it's going to cause some damage, but they have to focus on the objective.
You're right, he was too busy Hexifiring to find a point touch there, wasn't he? And then they end up losing the next point there, and now they're in a really bad fight. This Ash is absolutely going to end up falling. Skullest ends up taking a seat. We'll see you later, Monoyooh as well on that Jenos. And so Mandrake sends everybody back. They can start pushing up here a little bit, Gormizer. But I'm feeling like the focus is starting to slip a bit for Bala Mansa here as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, you had said 10 points in a row, make that 11 now.
Yeah.
Looking for the perfect 12-0 for Mandrake's University. It's just difficult when you're losing this hard. You changed up the draft, you changed up the style of the map and the way you want to play, and then this happens. It's just control coming down from it. Dinttick right now, Khan might not have the same damage output that he used to. You might not look at him that way, but his ult is still usually a guaranteed kill. And with Vortex Grip, until you have Rezil 3 online, that stun is just feeding you to the DPS here. And frzgod has been hanging out with him this entire time. I mean, Dinttick is just a kill machine. He's just not the one getting it. He'll get an assist every time because it's going to be frzgod or Mittow cleaning it up.
They finally locked down frzgod, and that's critical because he was looking so clean throughout the entirety of that sequence. I love the way I saw us from some of the camera movement and flicks as well. And clearly confident and in control. So this should be a bit of a slowdown now, finally, in favor of Bala Mansa, right, where Mandrake's have to regroup, try to wait for some of these respawns to come back in and make another push. But they still have a minute. They still have a couple ultimates available. Dambas is about to be back online very soon as well, so they certainly can get aggressive on this next push, especially if they can find a nice pick here, but they end up losing Dinttick, which should delay them even a bit further.
I mean, maybe being able to find a kill onto the Inara. Lucky getting aggressive here. Last Sex of Fire didn't work out, but he's charged it back up, and that opens up a lot of areas for him to potentially come out big. Or you can just see the other version of the stun. Outlander Maldamba still has some damage to him. And admittedly, again, when your support's able to do that kind of turnaround, 30 seconds on Bright Marsh, it's not a lot of time, but it's still just enough if they can get over to the objective.
These mid-fights, though, have been clean so far from Bala Mansa. Right when I say that, though, Outlander and frzgod find some pretty critical kills. They've got the Ashe lined up here as well. If Mittow can get behind and find the damage, there it is. Skullest ends up falling. It's Outlander that gets that one to stagger them out quite nicely. So if they're going to get this done, Gore, it's going to have to be done in overtime.
Well, the good thing is that Mandrakes have been very solid in this part of the map so far. Granted, we've only gotten to see them here once, so we're going off of that one round. But they have one ult in Cassie that's going to be Vision. It's a Cursed Arm. It's not hitting a lot of the shots, Finch, and that's the second time we've seen that.
Yep, you're right. That he went for the exact same play last time and found nothing. But Kronsz has fallen on the Inara. That is really going to hinder their ability to make this push work. This could finally be a Bala Mansa need. They do end up losing GroundFord, though, on their Androxus, so that's the flank removed from this equation. But this is why the defense can be so strong on this map. They have that high ground. frzgod ends up falling as well. And finally, Bala Mansa put a point on the board. That's got to feel good just to see one. They interrupt the 12-0 to find one.
But Finch, look what they have left. I mean, they had assert dominance coming into this final round. That is the only ult online. Mono threw his out to get a kill. I don't know if it was necessary at the end of that last round, just because of the fact that, it's gonna, it's flashy. I like the way that Jenos ult looks, but now you don't have that to potentially try and find a game-changing play right here, right now. You have comeback mechanic, you have Ashe ult. Those two things together can get you a lot of ground in terms of objective control, but you've got Seismic Crash from Kronsz, you've got the Scout from frzgod soon enough, and Ice Storm, as well as an Overpower and a Dread Serpent. Like, Mandrakes, they have the pacing of the game in their favor here, so Bala Mansa have to play this perfectly.
I didn't realize they've also got 3 caught 3s fully stacked and a caught 2 in the back pocket as well, so this Jenos getting mono on the Jenos can have his work cut out for him as Kronsz makes his way to the point already, building up some percent, but there's the strength of Void Grip. That control sets up GroundFord for an easy kill. Now frzgod has to try and fall back a little bit as Bala Mansa's now controlled this midpoint, got decent positioning, and they're actually forcing back the Khan here as well. Maybe Bala Mansa coming to life here a bit, Gore.
It's getting aggressive. They got frzgod off the board. The getting rid of Kronsz first opens up the door to get to that backline. It's the thing they've struggled with in the first 2 maps. This time around, they were able to handle it, but they leave Mono alone on the point. 70%'s nice. Right. Kronsz actually might overextend just trying to hold on to this.
It looks like he did. He puts the wall up. Lucky ends up falling, but RCSoldier gets past that wall easy enough. And that's twice now that Kronsz has died and really hasn't gotten to spend any time on this point. Mittow has fallen as well. I love this. A resurgence from Bala Mansa as they get their second point of the set now, and they get their first crack at offense.
Now we have to see that translate, and this is where things have been going wrong. GroundFord has had 3 just outright bad Accursed Arms. I was trying to think of a better way to describe it, but they've just missed. The shots haven't been on point. He hasn't been able to predict as well. And those are the moments that will make the big difference. But right now, this push is off to a gorgeous start for Bala Mansa. They might be able to ride this wave from the point capture into a conversion.
Kronsz does get GroundFord. Lucky has now fallen as well. That might stall a lot of the momentum they just built up. They do manage to grab NOTSKULLEST, pull him back, and the Ashe now removed from the equation as well. RCSoldier gets Kronsz in trade, but Gore, that should put an end to that push. And doesn't that just feel exactly like the whole set's gone? Bala Mansa finally had some momentum. Mandrake show right back up and cut it off, and now they're going to have to come by it honest.
I mean, a lot of it, that last fight was focused on the Kronsz 7-7 this time around, so it's been killing off this front line, which has opened up the door to Mittow, opened up the door more importantly to frzgod. He's got a 3.0 in terms of KD right now, 18-6. If you can get rid of this Cassie and handle it, that's going to be your key to victory for now. But you have to get through, I would argue, the biggest body in Inara first. Otherwise, you also have to deal with Dinttick, who's just been playing bodyguard for frzgod this entire time. It's
Yes.
going to be, again, a difficult task now that there's no guaranteed kill on the Inara. But you can see, line up in corridors like this, it's a perfect spot for Mono.
This could be potentially a decent fight. He's holding on through time and space here at this point. They managed to find 2 kills, make that 3 as Mono gets another one, shutting down frzgod. Mittow will fall here as well, and maybe Bala Mansa have set themselves up for a decent push, a double for GroundFord, as he shuts down Kronsz as well. The only one up is this Atlas to try and defend as this payload slowly rounds the next corner. Mandrakes will be able to spawn up in time to make one last defense here, and they will be coming in with that high ground with the scout and really all their ultimates at their disposal, but maybe they want to save them for this next point fight if it ends up being 3-3 Gore.
Yeah, it's that question. I mean, if you defend here, you're up 3-2. Yes, you have that ability to close out the round, but you might just lose that point. Then you're potentially looking at a loss. And you want to see what you can save as best you can. Maybe you can throw one to the wall, one ult here, one ult there. But with 5 seconds left and not a lot of healthy-looking targets there for Bala Mansa, I don't know how much presence they have on this point to keep overtime going.
Well, they're going to try and make one last push. The Androxus goes up. GroundFord already low, but it seems like he's still alive enough to try and win his duel. Mittow eventually ends up cleaning him up as RCSoldier gets Dinttick, but frzgod shuts down Skullest. That makes 2 members that have fallen, but they've got to get that Inara back in there. Kronsz just to step on the payload to stop the push. Lucky left down the middle of nowhere. He ends up falling as Kronsz gets a kill too. Mandrake successfully defend. Now they're going to head into this mid-fight Gore with all 5 ultimates stacked and ready to go to try and shut down Bala Mansa.
Looking really good, but Bala Mansa aren't too far behind. They only have 3 available right now, but soon enough you're going to have Skullest charging his. Same thing with Lucky. The question really comes down to whether or not they have time to get to that 100%. Skullest, Ash ult is one of the best ways to prolong an engagement. You're immune while you're within that flag, so you've got that little window of time to try and turn fights around. And if you can get rid of Kronsz, much like you did during the last mid-fight, you still have a comeback mechanic in your favor. Granted, right now it's only 4% every other tick because you're just down by 1 point. It's enough, right, to equalize the playing field. Either team can still win it right now. It just is all on Bala Mansa to play it right. And if they can just repeat what they did last round, they've got this.
Scout used early to gain information here from the Cassie and already putting good damage into Skullest on this right side, but in comes Lucky. They want to try and take frzgod out of the equation, but what a grab from Dinttick that pulls RCSoldier right back into his death, and that is huge to start this fight off in favor of Mandrakes, and maybe they can catch a couple more. One more pull brings Skullest back. He ends up falling. Mittow got Mono. Lucky falls too. Goremiser. Suddenly it's disaster for Bala Mansa as Mandrakes dominate them. They're not going to get in to make a touch here. The Androxus is here, yes, but I think that is already it. Mandrakes run over them and get the last cap.
Man, it looked, again, kind of neck and neck for, like, I would argue literally 1 second there, and then Mandrakes just hit the, oh, wait, no. You're not allowed to win this button, which admittedly was just all of their ults. They used it really well. Once they got compounded into that corridor with a con, there's a Dread Serpent. The CC was too strong. You could not fight in there.
No, it was so difficult at that point to try and win. Got to give plenty of credit for Dinttick, though, for hitting a sick pull to start that engagement off, aided by the information, I think, from frzgod, who started the fight off with his ultimate. 23-7, by the way. If that's not bad, if that's not too shabby for you, led all players in damage, if I'm not mistaken, by about 30k. So yeah, frzgod, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of an understatement as it comes down, but well.
Yes.
Yeah, he continues to impress, which is weird considering how much we've seen him do on a world's stage. Now seeing him do it in Brazil and just kind of keep going at the same pace. It's not too insane. 140,000 damage. And I mean, Vivian, Viktor, they're the ones that are meant to be just, inflating those damage numbers is the easiest way to say it. And the broadcast safe way to say it, right? That comes through. But frzgod, again, it was perfectly played because look at where he is and who's
he was with Dinttick.
He's got a healer and he's got a tank on top of him at all times. And it's the perfect bodyguard. He's got 2 bouncers anywhere he goes.
You're exactly right, man. The combination of him and Dinttick was so difficult for them to deal with, able to pull people out of position, find easy kills, and stack up those number advantages in their favor. And then as soon as they create those number advantages, who would jump into that gap but Mittow on the Evie? Right now, suddenly he's flanking to the back line, taking 1 or 2 more members out or lowering health bars and pushing them back. This is what I think Mandrakes do really well, is that once they get a couple small advantages, they waterfall them perfectly and are able to play with them really well. Let's go ahead and take a look, Goremiser, at the schedule schedule. We just saw this match here in Brazil. Now remember, we're only bringing one match, I believe, from each region. So we saw the Mandrakes versus Bala Mansa set. We'll be going to North America after this, but Los Gatos played, as well as Hive Mind and Rao played too. And then North America we'll be seeing happening a little bit later on.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see, again, North America is much in the same space as Europe, where you've got a lot of teams that are very close. And I'm going to tell you this now. Brazil, that one might seem a little more, well, off in what we have seen. And I think Triunfo is going to be the other team that you have to keep your eyes on. Mandrake and them are going to be composed of a lot of names you should recognize in Brazil. But the other four in that region are going to be fighting to try and see who can catch up to those top two first. Right now, I think they have the lead because of their history, but honestly, I'm looking at like Rao, and I'm looking at Hive Mind considering they're only at the -2 right now, and in the future, Bala Mansa and Los Gatos, what they're going to be able to ride and learn from this, because Triunfo and Mandrakes, again, they have the history and the clout in their name. But that doesn't mean you can't catch up.
You're exactly right, man. And I think a lot of improving from the 5th and 6th spot is how you respond to losses like that, right? Because that was a loss where virtually nothing went well. It's hard not to think about some of those Androxus Accursed Arms we saw on the last map there too, not really finding much value. I think that they've got to hit the grindstone a bit, grind up and catch back up to their level. But it's about how you respond, right? You can either get knocked down and stay there or get back up. And this is get back up time for Bala Mansa.
And honestly, you know, first week you face, again, one of the toughest
opponents
that you're going to have in
Very
Brazil.
tough opponent.
You could arguably shrug this one off and look forward to next week and what matchup you're going to have, because I think in the future, again, being able to hold your own and play as well as they did against a team like Mandrakes just means that there's a lot more hope when you go up against teams like Hive Mind or Los Gatos.
Well, Snappin' and Triple Deeps will be the match there in North America. Triple Deeps a team after my own heart. They say what they are right on the 10. So hopefully we'll have an exciting match there. It'll be a short break, then we'll be right back with North American Paladins to close out the day.